and welcome to We Be Kids. In today's session, we are going to be making some pressed flower cards of kindness. This time of year in the UK finds us with an abundance of wild flowers. Whilst they are wonderful for our birds, our bees, and most definitely our butterflies, they can also be beautiful when picked for nature art. For this session, you are going to need the following resources: some PVA glue, some double-sided tape if you have it available, and if not, don't worry, PVA glue works well just on its own. Some scissors, you're going to need some card to make your cards with, envelopes, and some paper to press your flowers between. If you have a flower press, you can of course use that now, and if not, then simply some heavy books and some heavy weights will suffice. There is a wide selection of wildflowers here in the UK, and they are very beautiful. We took the opportunity to use our dictionary to look up some of the words that may be associated with it. We then took our flowers, pressed them gently in between pages of clean white paper, making sure to then close the book carefully on them. And then we waited for about a week. After a week, we noticed that our flowers were seemingly dry. We should also note it has been quite warm here in the UK. Some flowers will take a little longer than others to dry out. It is quite possible that you may also need extra sheets of paper. We simply used 2 sheets, one either side, and that seemed to be sufficient to not have any dampness come through to our books. As you can see, when we remove them from the pages, some of them are still a tiny bit damp there. That's a dandelion. So as I say, some may take a tiny bit longer than others, but the week was the most and seemed to be sufficient for the majority of our flowers. So next you take your card and your envelopes. It's important to ensure that your cards are going to fit inside the envelopes you intend to use. So I had an A4 sized piece of card, and I used that to eventually make 2 cards because one would have been too large to fit inside a standard sized envelope. So just cut your card to the right size to make sure it will fit. Make sure you fold corner to corner nice and carefully, and use your finger to really press down on the edge. This makes sure for a nice clean, effective card. I used some spare card that we found in our recycling just to be able to give a little bit of a background. Whether you do this or not is entirely up to you. We stuck down our backgrounds onto the card using PVA glue. Here we have one with a nozzle. If you're using a spreader, always ensure that you keep the glue to a minimum and spread it carefully along the edges and across the surface. As you can see, your fingers will work just as well if you don't mind getting a little mucky. Make sure it's all aligned and then press down firmly. Next, choose your flowers. Now here I've chosen a rhododendron flower. And because it was so large, I thought it might be useful to consider maybe this time not the glue, but in fact the double-sided tape, because it's quite a large blossom. So taking your double-sided tape, make sure that you have roughly the right sort of length. Stick carefully down and then just place your blossom on top. Because the petals are so delicate, it's quite easy to stick it down with the double-sided tape. However, when you come to working with something with more of a stem, such as this one, which is a rock flower or a rock rose, actually using the PVA glue is the better option. Ensure you spread very sparingly because it will re-moisturize and put a little bit of water there back into your surfaces, and really you want to minimize that. Just place down gently and then press along the areas where you have the glue, and any excess just needs to be trimmed off. Just go back, check that everything is properly stuck, and then think about any other decorations you would like. I chose some twine. I'm going to place there along the bottom. Cut the length you need if this is what you are going to choose to add. PVA glue is usually the best for something like natural twine. You could of course use wool or ribbon or anything else that you have to hand. Make sure when you're working this way that you also consider the tips. If you snip them off, they may fray. Here I've placed glue on the tips on either end, and I'm pinching them together. It's a slightly more fiddly method, but it tends to ensure that the twine will stay in place and not fray as easily. You could use a bulldog clip to hold it in place, or just press down firmly, but make sure your card doesn't stick together. Of course, finally comes to sending your cards. Take this opportunity to consider your message to your friends. Perhaps write them a message of joy, hope, or love at this difficult time. And as an act of kindness, you can then send your beautiful pressed flower cards out into the world. Something so simple, but much appreciated. So have fun with it. See you next time. Bye from Weaving Kids.